Right on.
Spot on. Wow. Let us understand one another. Okay, thank you. Well, so good morning, first of all. And as we get started with our activities today, our workshop, The Right to Live, Abortion Prevention, we're going to start reading a text to harmonize, to calm down. After the text, we're going to do the initial prayer, and then we're going to have Moa introduce what we're going to see for today. So today's text is from Living Spring, Fonte Viva, text 122, and it's called, Let Us Understand One Another. But above all, ardently love one another. Peter, chapter 4, verse 8. There are no bigger or smaller endeavors. All of them are important. One person is respected due to the laws he or she passes. Another is admired because of his or her deeds. But neither the legislator nor the hero could stand out if not for the humble labor of the farmer who sows the field, or without the anonymous effort of the sweeper who cleans the public streets. Therefore, do not isolate yourself in the pride with which you think you are better than everyone else. The community is a team that serves, creating the wealth of experience. And we must not forget that the harmony of that living mechanism depends on all of us. When we are able to spread the stimulus of our understanding and collaboration to all, respecting the importance of our own endeavor and the excellence of other people's as well, the earth will be renewed on its road to perfect happiness. But before that happens, we must reciprocally devote ourselves to one another with ardent fraternal love. Let us love our position in the social order, no matter how humble or rudimentary it may be, lending our best efforts to the good, to progress, and to education. We will be understood according to our understanding. Let us see our neighbor embodied in his or her effort, and our neighbor will see us embodied in our endeavors. Let us reach out to those around us, and they will respond with the best they have. The most precious capital of life is that of goodwill. Let us use goodwill, and our life will be enriched with blessings and joys, today and always, wherever we may be. Let's do our initial prayer. Moa, can you turn off the lights, please? Thank you. Dear Lord, our benevolent, merciful, and patient Father, dear Jesus, our Master, and all the mentors of our house, we address you today, asking for guidance, asking for enlightenment, asking you to lead us in a path of goodness, asking you to give us strength so that we can align our will with God's will. And God's will for us is progress, is peace of mind, is happiness. May we today here understand more about what is behind abortion, what it means for the present and the future of all of those involved. Let us understand what your laws are, Father, so that we may abide to them, so that we may fulfill our conscientious duty, reaching our peace of mind. May we here today learn not only information, but may we have our hearts touched. May we feel compassion for all of our brothers and sisters who have fallen prey to such a mistake. We also ask, Lord, for your enlightenment, your blessing, and your protection for all of our brothers and sisters who are present here today, incarnated and discarnated, all of our friends who are following online, everybody who wanted to be here today but for some reason was not able to. We pray that everybody be able to find their way to the path of enlightenment, improvement, and progress. So be it. Okay, Moa.
Vitor,
Yes.
você me ajuda aqui, por favor? Calma. Você muda para mim aqui? Muda aqui, tá?
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming this morning. Thank you, everybody watching us. We will start today our seminar, the first seminar of the year of our series, Sharing Life. The topic today is about abortion prevention, the right to live. So we would like to start with one question for the Spirit books, 880. Which is the first of all the nature right of man? The right to live. And therefore, no one has the right to take the life of his fellow creatures or to do anything that may compromise his personal existence. So, based in the Spirit books, in all the literature that we have available for us, we will, for this day, and the whole day, we will be here reflecting, thinking, and talking about this very important topic for our society. Okay, next slide, please. So we will start our first lecture talking about Spiritism view and the lack of the consciousness by Luis. After, we will follow with Sonia talking about abortion in Canada. What is the law? Then we will have a theater play presentation from our kids. And then after lunch, we will come back 1 p.m. talking about prevention for a number's perspectives with Victor. 1:45, Renata will talk with us about the circumstance and possibility consequence of abortion. 2:30, Anna will talk with us about consoling and approaching and self-forgiveness. After the break, 3:30, we will have our last lecture with Eric, talking about the light of Spiritism, bringing the society up to the conscience. And then we will finish your activities for today. So we will invite you, everybody, to stay with us, connected and here. Be free to join us, any lectures you have interest in, and let us feel inside this feeling of love, respect, forgiving, and consoling. So everybody here had the opportunity to understand how important life is, right? How important is the opportunity to give life to someone else. And we will be able here to talk and reflect and understand that everybody has chance to redeem themselves, to change other paths, other lives, and help everybody reflect how important life is. Thank you, everybody, and please join us. Luis.
All right. Good morning, everyone. So we're going to start talking about abortion. And what does Spiritism say about it? So the objective today is to understand the Spiritism position in relation to abortion. So I decided, based on our feedback, to keep it simple. And just, not just, but we have such a rich literature, and especially the Spirit's book, and there is so many information there that we can discuss, and that information can guide us, understand what is the position, what does Spiritism say about it, and how it explains, especially during the conception and during those 9 months of pregnancy, what happens there? What are the challenges? So, in order to understand abortion, it's imperative, it's fundamental that we understand the concept of reincarnation. And to start understanding the concept of reincarnation, I want to bring one of our favorite questions. The question 115. Has some spirits been created good and others evil? So we know at the beginning we are all created simple and ignorant, aka without knowledge. But I want to bring attention to this piece of the answer. So God has given us, each of them has given each of them a mission. It is aimed at enlightening them and progressively leading them towards perfection, to knowledge of the truth, in order to draw them near to God. In that perfection, they will achieve pure and eternal happiness. And here's the point: spirits acquire knowledge by experiencing the trials that God has imposed on them. And then I ask myself, and I ask you guys, what is the mechanism? How can a spirit acquire knowledge with the trials? What happens that gives us this possibility to acquire knowledge? When does it happen?
When we are incarnated?
Yes, when we are incarnated. So then I said, okay, incarnation. So what does the Spirit's book talk about incarnation? So question 167. What is the purpose of reincarnation? I just said. So it's brilliant, right? So it's brilliant how, and we all know Kardec with his way of investigating, and it's interesting how us preparing and learning Spiritism start developing that method of question and cross-reference to make sure that things make sense. And I said, all right, so the purpose of reincarnation complements 115, which is the expiation and the progressive betterment of humankind. Without this, where would this justice lie? Wouldn't it be fair just to have one chance? And if we make some mistakes, what happens? What is the justice if we don't have another chance? And then I said, all right, the reincarnation is the mechanism that we can expiate. I know that the process of reincarnation, I think it's complicated, it's complex, it starts with a lot of planning. But if I not disregard, but if I just focus on when, after that planning, when does a life start here in this matter, on this earth? I said, okay, when does it start? There is a question for that. Question
There's
3,
an F
4.
for that.
There's an F for
That's a question
that. So after all that planning, the spirit said, agree to reincarnate, or even if he or she doesn't agree, it's compulsory. But there is a point when that life on earth starts. And what is that point? So when does the soul unite with the body? So this union begins at the conception, but is only completed at birth. From the moment of conception, the spirit assigned to inhabit a specific body joins the body by a fluid link, which will increasingly tighten up to the moment of birth. The cry produced by the infant announces that it has entered the number of the living and the servants of God. So, okay, we have a starting point. We know when life starts based on the Spiritism understanding and what Kardec has codified according to the Spirit of Truth. And I said, now there is a disconnection between what does Spiritism say and some of the human laws, right? So what is that gap? But before I go to that gap, Kardec explains a little bit more about this tightening up, this link, because it seems that it starts connected, but it's not firm. So he says, does a fetus have a soul? So we say that the life starts that they uniting the, I don't know the word in English. Uniting? Yeah. Union, yeah.
Yeah, right there.
Union. Consider that union of the spirit and the body is not fully consummated into birth. The spirit who is to animate, it exists. And I should have put the spirit in capital. Somehow outside the fetus. Strictly speaking, it has no soul since the incarnation process is in effect. But the soul is linked to the body that is about to have. It's that link that is forming. And sometimes I keep imagining that soul just sitting there and slowly getting into the fetus and the fetus in the body of that kid. So now,
Not necessarily contained.
but
Yes,
in the
okay,
process
but
of
a stronger
getting in there, a
connection,
stronger connection. So now we have the most clear question from the Spirit's book regarding abortion. Question 358. Is intentional abortion a crime regardless of the length of the pregnancy? And the Spirit's book is very clear. Based on all this knowledge that we've understood now that we need a reincarnation to progress, we know that life starts in that conception when the soul is united with the body. So the Spirit's book says, any transgression of God's law is a crime. Taking the life of an unborn child is a crime, whether committed by the mother or someone else, because the soul is prevented from experiencing the trials intended for the body that was destroyed. So that is a perfect link. If we go back to 115, as a spirit, we all need this chance. We all need this life to expiate, to remove all the good that we have to learn from our soul. So here, the Spirit's book is very clear on the stance that Spiritism take regarding abortion. So now, and Sonia will talk more about this. Now I want to put a little bit in contrast. We know now that the soul unites with the body since conception. But what is the definition of life? Let's take here Canada as an example. So in Canada, according to the Criminal Code C-46, when a child becomes a human being, a child becomes a human being within the meaning of this act when it has completely proceeded in a living state from the body of its mother, whether or not it has breathed, it has an independent circulation, or the navel string is severe, severed. Yeah. Killing a child. A person commits homicide when he causes injury to a child before or during its birth, as a result of which this child dies after becoming a human being. So now that I think it's important that after becoming a human being, because what defines human being is only after that child is born. So here, as I mentioned before, there is that disconnection between what the doctrine says about what the Spiritism says and what our human laws are telling us. Kardec, in chapter 7, there's several questions that talks about everything about the union of the body and the soul. And I would like to talk a little bit about that because specifically here in Canada, there are some instances when a mother when a mother goes to a doctor and the doctor identifies that some issues with the fetus, it is recommended that the mother should proceed with an abortion. However, it's so clear and so...
Not recommended, but they give the option.
Yes, they give the option. Yeah, you're better than recommended. Or sometimes...
I think it depends on the medical team.
They could be almost like I think they have to give them, I don't know, should they have a, depending on how they approach, they might kind of insist that, are you sure you don't want to, like, even depending on the approach, but yeah.
So maybe it's even stronger than option. There are some cases where they can...
They actually give you, this was like, for me, 14 years ago, and then 12 years ago, but both of my pregnancies were normal, and after my first ultrasound, I was given the choice. I was asked, with my first child, I was asked at least 4 times if I was sure I wanted to keep the baby. Even though the ultrasound result was that both babies were absolutely normal, they asked me more than once if I was sure I wanted to keep the baby. So I imagine that if there's some kind of malformation or if they detect possibility of Down syndrome, that it is stronger than just an option, and it could go up to a suggestion, but I think it also depends on the professional that you're talking to. Yes.
And Sonia will talk more about how the abortion is viewed from a law perspective, from a human laws perspective, and there's no law against it, right? So it's decriminalized, and we will know more about it when Sonia talks about the legislation here. But abortions can happen here in Canada. So let's go through some of those questions when there are some challenges in that pregnancy period, those 9 months. So the first question that Kardec shines a light is question 347. Can a spirit derive any benefit from incarnating a body that dies a few days after birth? What do you think? And what type of benefit do you think it can derive? What could be the benefit if the child will die a few days after birth? What's the purpose then?
somehow the spirit incarnated in the body needed that experience, that short experience. And I believe that is important for the parents as well.
Exactly. I was just saying, okay, I'm going to ask Sonia, who else? Also. Bang on, exactly. So the new being's cognizance of its life, it's so barely developed that its death, it's of little importance. As we have told you, such deaths are often intended as a trial for the parents. Yes, it might be for that child, but it might be for that parent, right? Another question is there such a thing as, and I thought that word is so strong, as an unviable child, as indicated by science? Because sometimes science will say, no point, right? If so, for what purpose does it take place? And this happens often. God allows these births as a trial, again, either for the parents or for the spirit intended to animate it. And here, we could even elaborate a little bit more, right? So Emmanuel said that there's no handshake by chance, right? If handshake is such a small gesture, can you imagine having an unviable child? And then if you think a little bit further, with all the preparation that I talked in the beginning to reincarnate, do you think that preparation, after that, there's nothing to do, we're going to prepare? It doesn't make sense if we investigate all the information that this doctrine provides us. So, of course, there's no viable. Yep.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I also think that if we admit that this would be possible and viable child, would mean that God would create that for which reason. So everything that God creates has a purpose and a reason, right? So.
And there is the last question that I'm going to talk about in that sub-chapter, that Kardec wraps up everything. Hold your horses. I thought it was simple but beautiful on how he wraps up about all the challenges that it is faced during pregnancy. So let's keep moving. Spirit's book 356. Are some stillborn children never intended for the incarnation of a spirit? Do you know what's stillborn? What is it?
Child that is born dead.
Yeah, or it's, when I look at the explanation, it can be dead inside of the mom's womb.
Inside,
Yeah.
it's big enough that would kind of have a delivery way to be taken out, let's say that.
Even if it's not full term, but it's big enough for a C-section delivery. Yeah.
So what is the answer? Yes. And as he keeps on that thread, right? Some never had a spirit assigned to. Isn't that interesting? That baby is dead, and there's no spirit assigned to that baby. Nothing would have been accomplished in them. In such case, the child's arrival is simple a trial for the parents. That was really revealing for me. Just the law of justice is so perfect, as God is so perfect, that there's so many mechanisms that is available for us as spirit to develop, whatever we need to develop, that even a baby without a spirit can be in the womb of a mom to give her the possibility, and even not her, people around, the possibility to repair, the possibility to expiate what she or he needs.
There is, now I can't remember if it's action and reaction, or if it's evolution in two worlds. One of them even has an explanation of how that can happen physically. Sometimes the parents, mainly the mother's wish to have a child is so intense that physically she will attract that and it will result in a pregnancy, but doesn't necessarily have a spirit assigned. And we're also going to see later in the consequences of abortion, many times, I would say most times, the spirit of the child that is going to be born is connected to the parents. And sometimes it is also for an expiation. Sometimes there were previous enemies or something like this. But in a situation like this, if there isn't one spirit that would need that trial with the parents at the same time, then there's no need to make a spirit who doesn't need to go through that experience do it. And then that's the case when there's no spirit attached.
Interesting.
Wow.
It's really cool. And then in question 356A, he asks, can a being of this nature come to term? Sometimes, yes, but it does not survive. So then we have question 372. Is what is the aim of providence, providencia, in creating beings so ill-treated by natures, such as spirits with mental disabilities? Yeah, I changed. So that is, I think that question encompasses the whole challenge that we face on Earth now for the recommended abortions when there's a malformation or there's a disability or something it's not quote unquote perfect with that child. And the Spirit says, spirits with mental disabilities are incarnations of spirits who are undergoing punishment and who suffer from the constraint they experience and from their inability to manifest themselves by means of organs which are undeveloped or out of order. So studying one lecture from Alirio, he gave a great example that explains this question in real life. So you all remember, we had 2 years ago, I think, the Zika virus, right? A crisis in Brazil, where the child will have microcephaly, which is the brain, I think, is too small. I think, or the head is too.
The skull.
The skull is too small to contain the brain. So as we know, everything has a purpose. Nothing happens by chance, and we all know there is challenges not only on the spirit side. There's challenges with the government not providing the proper health, moms not taking care of it, but nonetheless, that spirit that is reincarnated with that disability comes here to expiate, right? Comes here to extract all the pureness that he had to. But what in that case, one possibility, what he or she has to expiate. So that spirit might have used his or her intelligence to evil, or not according to the law of justice, love, and charity. So what happens? He or she has to come back on earth to learn how to not use that intelligence on a negative way, and to educate itself for the future. In the absence of not having intelligence, he will value. He will understand what it does that causes not being intelligent, so he or she can be better prepared for the future.
And use it better.
Next time. For the good. So even though it is a challenge, not only for the child, it might be some other instances where the parents were involved too, and then together need to educate themselves to better use that intelligence in the future.
Well, oftentimes, or most of the times, you could say that everyone in the same family, and they are facing consequences of past life. So, as you said, it could be for the child, could be that actually was for someone. And so it's, everyone could have a different role, could be to expiate, could be as a proof, could be not to proof is not a proper word, I guess, trial.
Trial.
But yes, it's so beautiful how everything happens,
Yeah.
and we all have the possibility to.
And we just talk about one case here, but there are so many other cases that can help explain and put in perspective and help those thinking about committing this or just clarify. There is a reason. There is logic on a mom and parents and family going through this. Sorry.
No, I just said that there's a reason and the logic behind
Yeah.
all this.
All the situation.
And mercy.
And mercy as well. Exactly. Because why mercy? You bring a very good point. Why mercy?
Because we have another chance to be better, to do good.
Exactly. And we go back to that 115, right? If I use my intelligence towards if I use my intelligence against the law of love, justice, and charity, I need a chance to come back and correct and educate myself and learn how to use towards good.
Spoiler alert. You prepare for our child presentation today.
Okay.
Okay.
Spoiler alert. So this question was very interesting, and I had never thought about it. It's question 687, saying, if the global population continues to grow as it has up until now, will it become too large over the course of time? And there's a term, and I was trying to establish some relation with your statistics, because there are some people who say, oh my God, Earth is too big now. We have undeveloped, developing countries, that why are we going to put one more mouth to live, right? And there's this term called abortion for economic reason. The population is too much. We don't need to have one more. And Kardec answers, no, God always maintains a balance and does not make allowances for anything useless. The species sees only a small corner of the universe, and as such, it is unable to recognize the harmony of the whole.
Yes.
I like a small corner, right?
Yeah.
Not just a small piece.
It's small corner. That was beautiful. And then there's another passage, I think, chapter 25, into the Gospel according to Spiritism, where Kardec mentions that God, with all his perfection, and he will balance all the needs that the earth has, right? So there's no point of doing that. There's no justification. But so far we've talked. At this point there's no reason to commit to execute or to commit abortion. My question, is there a instance, is there a point that Spirit says, yes, abortion can be committed? Is there?
Just if there's a risk for the mom.
Exactly.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back there. Okay. So yeah, the union. This question: when the life of the mother is at risk by the birth of a child, is it a crime to sacrifice the child to save the mother? It is better to sacrifice a being that does not yet fully exist than a living being.
I love the fully.
Yeah.
Because of the connection that only completes at birth. So not fully exist. Still exist, but not fully.
Yeah. But even now, if you put this question in perspective of how we are now, with all the advancement of the medicine, right, and all the technology, this is becoming rare and rare. But I read a comment, even though when there is the case that abortion is needed to save the mom, can you imagine all the learnings that mom who have to go through to understand what is going through, why the abortion is needed, the love and everything that she will have to think about and understand, maybe a little bit, no, maybe pain. Even there is a purpose, right? There are learnings that the mother and the parents and whoever is involved can take out of that.
And there are many cases, as you said, with the science and like the development of ways to keep the moms alive or help with the health. There are a lot of cases where the moms are diagnosed with cancer, for example, during pregnancy. So first of all, they would probably not notice if they were not pregnant at that time because of all the tests they do. And a lot of them decide to go on with the pregnancy and then start treatment later on. They still make the choice to go on or not.
Yeah. So now I want to go back to the question 345. Is the union between the spirit and the body conclusive from the moment of its conception? Could the spirit, during the initial period of that union, abandon the body that has been assigned to it? So we learned that the union between the spirit and the body starts on that conception, but then it's keep tying it up. So do you think it's possible that during that period, during those 9 months, that the spirit will abandon the body that was assigned?
There's a possibility.
Yeah. So Renata will talk about more what we call here miscarriages, right? So the answer is the union is conclusive in the sense that no other spirit could replace the one to whom the body has been assigned to. So when I was conceived, the spirit of Louise is there. So it won't be replaced. But as the link that binds the body and soul is very weak at first, it can be easily broken and severed by a spirit who abandons the child it had chosen. When this happens, the child does not leave. That's why we have the miscarriage. And Renat, this is one instance where the spirit decided, for so many reasons, not to proceed. But there are other cases that Renata will talk about between the influence of the mother and the child. But stay tuned. But yes, there is a chance of that natural abortion.
So the body, when the body is being formed, it is formed according to that spirit that will come to it. So that's why I don't replace. There's no replacement. Let's say that.
Yeah, like if I'm conceived, Louise, you can't have suddenly after 5. Let's go to Carol. Oh no, now it's Carol. Now it's Sonia. It's Louise that at that
We're
point.
not gods as far as we know.
Yeah.
That's not a possibility.
That's not a possibility. Yeah.
But who knows what?
Okay. All right, that is a question, Anna. So Kardec, so far, he gave a lot of explanation, right? Where life starts, the process of incarnating, the tidying up of the link, the challenges that our fetus might have with malformation, and so many other things that can happen during the pregnancy. And then he asks, is it rational to treat a fetus with the same respect as the body of a child that has lived? And he answers, you should acknowledge God. You should acknowledge God's will and work. Do not treat lightly things that you must respect. Why should you not respect creations that are sometimes incomplete by the Creator's will? They are part of God's designs, and no one may judge it. And I think there is a point, there is a purpose, there is a reason. It's not by chance. So that fetus deserves the same respect that we have to any other creation, God's creation. So finally, there is a 2-minute video on YouTube from Federação Espírita Mato Grosso, where Sal Saulo, I think it's Saulo, talks about the true meaning of cherishing life. So we know that the divine laws govern the universe. The divine laws govern our intimacy. So we need to be connected to those divine laws by developing those virtues. Because developing those virtues, we will be closer to God. And we have to take the opportunity of all the experiences that are provided to us to learn. And pregnancy, it's an opportunity to develop God's attribute of creation. And we can, as we study, we have to cherish life, not considering this life as the only one. We have to consider we have to cherish life considering ourselves as an immortal spirit. And we have to understand that through those experiences that we will extract the opportunities to get closer to God. So those are Saulo's words on quote unquote on the true meaning of cherishing life. And then, last but not least, I made an attempt, as I have a couple more minutes, to translate a chapter called Abortion from the book Sex and Life, Sexo e Vida, from Chico Xavier by the Spirit Emmanuel. When he says, of all the social institutes on earth, the family is the most important one, from the point of view of the moral foundations that govern life. It is by the sexual conjunction between man and woman that humanity perpetuates itself on the planet. Therefore, the mechanisms of human survival from a physical perspective in the face of the globe reside between parents and children. It is easy to understand that it's precisely this, that we, the mortal spirits, attending to the impositions of progress, the law of progress, take turns in the arena of the world. Sometimes we assume positions of parents. Other times, assume position of children. And gradually learning in the experience of this carnal body the deep lessons of love. The love that will lift us one day from the earth to the heavens. With such notes, we aim only to highlight the calamitous or severe expression of criminal abortion, practices exclusively by escape from duty, fuga do dever. Usually, we are the ones who plan the formation of the family. Before the earth's rebirth, with the support and supervision of worthy instructors. Can you imagine the preparation and the people involved in our reincarnation? In the manner of the house we raise in the world, with the support of distinct architects and technicians. That was so brilliant. We have commonly called old comrades of unfortunate adventures, scheduling their return in our fellowship, nosso convívio, to promise them help and opportunity, in which the hope of upliftment, redeeming, refinement, and improvement is rebuilt. We create projects, we make suggestions, we articulate providence, and externalize respectful votes, embracing ourselves with them in a salutary commitment, which, if observed, will result in substantial blessings for all the group of hearts to which our existence is linked to. I thought it was beautiful. I want to end up on that note. That's it. Thank you very much.
Very much.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
How everybody doing so far? Are you enjoying?
Yes.
Good. We had lots of good explanations about Spiritism view, perspective of abortion. So now that we have this spiritual view, let's talk a little bit more about this country, how this country has, how they see abortion. Okay, so let's talk about the laws. Abortion in Canada, what are the laws? So let's get started with the point when everything started. The decriminalization of abortion started with the Minister of Justice, Pierre Trudeau. That is the father, the Justin Trudeau dads. It started in 1969, 50 years ago, in cases of the pregnancy might endanger the mother's life or health. So this was when the Minister of Justice, Pierre Trudeau, amended the criminal code, the laws in Canada was in line with the Spirit's book, when it says that when the mother's life is in risk, so the abortion is an option. It's the question 359, right? But all the other abortions were still subject to the criminal code sanctions. So just in this case only, the abortion should be an option. Okay.
You should have stopped there, right?
Yes, should have stopped that.
Yeah.
But no, this didn't happen. Yeah.
That's what we're gonna learn.
Yes, that's what we're gonna learn. Perfect. So let's move on with the landmark decisions. Oh, sorry about that. I guess my presentation has oh, yeah. So let's start with the chapter Charter of Rights and Freedoms that was enacted in 1982 by the same person, Pierre Trudeau, but by that time he was a Prime Minister of Canada. And so he enacted this Charter of Rights and Freedoms, that means is the Constitution of Canada, that says that any law found contravening those rights could be struck down as invalid. So any law that goes against this charter is considered invalid right away. So the rights and freedoms, protects the human rights and the fundamental freedoms of all Canadian citizens. That is the aim of this charter. So it's important to know about that because it has everything to do with what is happening today in Canada about abortion. So in 1988, we have some landmark decision. In this case, the Crow versus Morgentaler. The Supreme Court of Canada struck down Canada's abortion law as unconstitutional. It violated Section 7 of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms because it infringed upon a woman's right to life, liberty, and security of person. So let's talk a little bit more about this case because it's fundamental to us, for us to understand what is going on in Canada's about abortion. Okay, so the Supreme Court struck down this abortion law because they understood that abortion law was against the women's right and freedoms. There is a section, the Section 7 in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Remember that every law that goes against the charter can be struck down. So that's the point. But the Supreme Court of Canada didn't say that, or did not recognize a constitutional right to abortion, didn't say that, and did not recognize abortion as a law. Actually, the Supreme Court left it to the Parliament to come up with a new abortion law that didn't go against the charter. that could protect a woman's right and the preborn rights as well.
So the only basis was that it was against
Yes,
the charter.
Yes.
That's it.
that's it. So the Supreme Court asked Parliament, come up with a new law, because this
So
law,
how can you balance
Yes.
How to balance
we
that?
need to find a balance between women and preborn. But since then, 1988, nothing happened. So they are trying to come up with new abortion laws. But all them, so far, all these attempts were failed. So this is very important for us to know that there is lots of misunderstanding and confusion amongst Canadians, among medical people that works in the healthcare, legal area, or even the pro-abortion people about this. Because they say that the Supreme Court assures them this law, this right. No, this is wrong. The Supreme Court only struck down this abortion law and asked to come up with a new one.
So they're just living in a gray area.
Yes.
It's up to interpretation.
There is a lack. There's
a gap.
A gap, actually, a gap between in this situation. So let's move on. There are lots to talk about. In 1989, there is another landmark case. Fathers have no say. This is the case, the Tremblay versus Dago. What did happen there? The Supreme Court ruled that a father has no legal right to veto a woman's abortion decisions. So the dad doesn't have nothing to say. Like they say here, it's a woman's body and she needs to, this is a issue that she needs to resolve between her and her doctor. The dad is
Outside the picture.
Yes, outside the picture. But as you explained to us in the question 369, actually it was 360, the book of the Spirit's book, that says the conception, so
344.
344, but how the conception can start without the without the father's participation. So that's really, it's a decision between the woman only and the doctor, or both, the couple, because both are together in this decision, but that's not the understanding of the Supreme Court. So this case is an emblematic case. If you want to check better about that, it's available on the internet. And the boyfriend was trying to was trying to prevent his girlfriend to not have an abortion. Okay? And the case, of course, he lost the case. So she did an abortion. So let's move on. After that, some attempts to pass legislation. Somebody decides to, okay, we need a new law. Let's start it. So in 1990, the Bill C-43 would sentence doctors to 2 years in jail for providing abortions where a woman's health was not at risk. But the Senate did not approve it. Side was a tie vote, but failed anyways. But was an attempt to prevent, abortion. In 1995, the provincial and federal rulings forced Nova Scotia and New Brunswick to allow private abortion clinics. So there were some resistance regarding abortion. So that doesn't mean that all Canadians agree with abortion. There are lots of people that are against it. And that was one of the signs. Move on. So we bring some facts from an abortion clinic. This is it's a clinic in Kensington here in Calgary that Victor helped me with this point. what they say, they treat abortion like a very, it's like a medical procedure, very simple.
Transaction, right?
Hmm?
It's like a transaction.
Yes, exactly.
It's so weird.
They treat in a very rational way, in a very cold way.
It's like your grocery shopping.
Yes, exactly. So they say that the numbing the conscience, that means you will have an intravenous inserted, and you'll be given medication to help with anxiety, to help you relax, and to help you with pain. And the medical abortion, it is at least 10 times safer than continuing a pregnancy. That's so sad. That's so sad, and that's not correct, right? If you think like in a moral way and even in a rational way, who says that? Who says that the pregnancy could not be safer, right? And they say that they are gonna clean your uterus, they treat like in a very uncompassionate way, in a very like we're gonna solve your problems. Don't worry. So that's not the right thing to do. That doesn't have any reflection, right? And normally, women that choose abortion, normally they have some problems. Like some of them had some. They ended up with some psychological regrets or psychological problems, issues because of that act. Because it's a baby. It's not something that is in your uterus, right? But let's move on. Attempts to reopen abortion debate. So there were some attempts to bring it up, this issue, like let's talk about it. Some politicians, they tried to do something. In 2007, they brought this bill 484, Unborn Victims of Crime Act. So they they are trying to create a separate offense for causing the injury or death of a fetus in situations where a pregnant woman is a victim of an offense. So they are trying somehow to prevent someone to injure the fetus. This is the law, right? They are trying to bring this law. Failed again. In 2010, they tried to pass the Bill 510 to ban coerced abortion. Coerced. What does it mean?
Somebody forces you to.
I say a teenager girl is pregnant and the parents are forced to have
Exactly.
an abortion.
It's against the woman's will.
Yes, or against any, even of those counseling or those recommendations that Louise were talking about, and Renata as well, from doctors saying, are you sure that you want to have this baby? This is a kind of coercion.
Yeah.
And they were trying to protect women that was not totally decided to have an abortion, to be, to make them the person change their minds. Yes. But failed again. In 2013, the Bill 537, coercion of medical personnel. So they were trying to protect that healthcare personnel that could refuse to participate in any medical procedure that could be against their beliefs, their religions, and their understand how valuable is a life. They're trying to protect people that refuse to do that. Besides, doctors are not obliged to take part, but they could have some coercion to take part. Then this bill was trying to protect this healthcare people. Didn't pass. In 2012, this is a very important motion. Motion 312, when human life begins.
That is the kind of the
Yes.
Trigger.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the trigger. So what is motion? Do you have a question? Because all this attempt so far was bills. Bills are kind of amendment to laws. But this one was a motion that means a formal proposal,
to create something new.
to a committee. So this motion was trying to create a committee to study what the criminal code means with when human life begins. Because as
The C46, to change the C46.
yes, or to understand better, to develop a study about what do you mean with when human life begins. It's really after left the mother's body or before. Let's talk about, let's reflect about that. And that's very important because goes in line with the question 358, is it right? When the women's life begins, 359.
344.
Oh, 344,
That's
sorry.
when the
Yeah.
soul unites the body.
Too many, too many numbers. Sorry. Thank you, Luis. 344, when the human life begins in the conception, right? But as you said, it is not the same way that the Canada's legislation see this situation. And in 2000, decade, we are going to have the abortion pill era. So in 2015, we have abortion care in line with the Canada Health Act. What does it mean? Does it mean that all the women have the right to be covered under the Canada Health Act to have an abortion? In 2017, they come up with this pill called mifepristone, available in Canada for use in medical abortion. So this mifepristone is supposed to be used until 9 weeks of pregnancy. So don't mix it up with the pill, the morning after pill.
Yeah.
This morning after pill is used when within a few days after sex to prevent pregnancy. This one is for abortion, literally.
9 weeks.
9 weeks.
When does the heart start beating?
I'll let you know.
Oh,
6 weeks. 6 weeks.
The next day pill or
Morning after.
it could be aborted too if
Yeah.
there has conception had happened, but that's not the original purpose.
Yes, the
Yeah,
original
that's-
purpose is to prevent.
Yeah.
But this one was the purpose
It's
is abortion.
And I guess also, imagine if the mom already knows she feels she's pregnant, but she still takes the pill.
Yeah.
Then I think we'll have a different way for
The intention.
yeah, because you already know, right? But you still try to receive it first. I'm just wondering.
Yeah.
Anyways, move on. Go ahead.
Okay, so in 2018, British Columbia implemented universal cost coverage of mifepristone. That means that it's for free. So people has access to this abortion pill in clinics, in hospitals, in pharmacies. They don't need they don't have many problems, many issues to get this pill. Okay, so that's before we had this the era of anticonceptional pill, and now we have the abortion pill. So we are not thinking before, like they're not thinking to prevent a pregnancy. We're thinking about how to end a pregnancy. So what's the choice? We have choices to prevent. Why are not doing that in the first place? Right? So basically, abortion law in Canada is, there is no abortion laws. Like I said in the beginning, since 1988, there's no abortion laws. Abortion laws was considered unconstitutional, and so far, the parliament didn't come up with any abortion laws. So there is this gap, and people are taking over, and they are like, it is decriminalized. So quotations means legal, right? It's performed at a hospital, and the cost covered under the provincial health insurance plan. So in some province, there is no hospital. The hospital doesn't perform abortions, but they can go to a clinic, and the cost is covered by the health plan. And there are few provinces actually that do that. One of is Prince Edward. Yes. The consent is only required from patient. So since she is 16 years old, and a doctor confirms her mental capacity. So 16 years old, it's a child, right? Like, it's not that it's a child, but
Yeah,
there's no maturity enough.
you're not legally allowed to drink, but you're legal to make
A decision
about someone else. Like,
yes. So because of the abortion law was decriminalized since 1988, there is no legal restrictions on abortion, making it possible to get an abortion right up until the birth. There are some websites that states that this is not totally true, that you need to be before 20 weeks. After 20 weeks, it's only if the woman's health is in risk. But the major of them shows that, according with my research, that abortion can be done anytime. And when they say that abortion is only provided when the woman's health is in risk, that goes along with the question 359, correct, Miss?
Yeah.
no.
I'm getting there. Oops, sorry. But this is a very important point, because what happened that Canada lost this connection. So before it was in line, and after 1988, because the Supreme Court understood that the abortion law was against the rights, the human rights of all the women in Canada, what didn't happen then? Why? That's the point where this connection was broke. Then, like we have talked about, there is no limitation. Killing unborn child in act of birth. So this is the point where that Luis brought us in the question 358, that the killing unborn was a crime. Killing an unborn child is a crime. So the science goes along with this. Science shows that separate life is created at conception, complete with this own unique set of DNA. Goes along with the question 344 of the Spirit's book. But the provision C46 says that of the on-side section of the code says that a child becomes a human being when it has fully left its mother's body, like Luis have showed us. earlier. And this section goes even against the science. This is one of the biggest support for abortion, for the people that support abortion in Canada. Because they say that it's not a human being. So what's the point? What's the problem? But the science says that it is a human being. So why people in Canada, why the parliament didn't come with didn't think the same? There are more things involved in that.
Because they focus the most in human rights. Oh, you have the decision. You have to.
Yeah.
Instead of
It's your body.
But they don't consider that a preborn child has human.
Yeah.
Is protected under human rights.
Yeah.
So you are protected under human rights, but the child inside your body
It's also
it's also protected.
is not.
should be.
Should be.
Should be.
Yeah, but it's
It's not, because it's not a human being. So you have something in your body, but it's not. Yeah, it's alien or something, but it's not a human being.
It's really, I think it's really the perception or excuses that some of us make to, about the word, like to keep our thoughts. Let's say maybe this group of people have whatever things from other lives or views, and they do not want to look at the heartbeat starts at this many weeks, but they, it's the perception of what it is. No, my rights first. I'm gonna fight for the rights. I'm not. It really depends. And
Yeah.
for the government, the parliament to not do anything. And again, it's a very touchy subject.
Oh yes, it's a very hot actually,
Yeah,
because
it's really
people that
politicians. What are they gonna do? Who they're gonna support? Are they gonna have votes or not?
if
So-
you go against these people that support abortion, we can lose votes. So
Yeah.
don't touch on that. And at the same time, it's important because it's fundamental human rights. It's a human baby inside our body, and that's what we need to look after. And that's very important for us to understand that, because when we are going to vote, we are going to, when there is an election, we need to see if that candidate, what's his view or her view about abortion. Because we can have some changes in this country about this or not. Depends on the candidate that we choose. Like Trudeau is totally against. He's in favor of abortion, actually. He's not, he supports abortion. So because of his view, of the liberal view, they say, and the most of these bills, and the most of these motions were brought up from candidates from the conservative people. We need to be careful about that, because we're not here telling you to whom you need to vote, with this party or this party. We are just trying to show that it's very important to be aware that there is no laws, and the law can be created if we choose the right candidate. Because this is a very important point. So, but there are some hopes. Besides, Canada is one of only a few countries in the world that doesn't have any laws protecting the preborn. China as well. So Canada and China are the leaders of this situation, that there's no any laws that protect the preborns. Let's move on. So there are some hopes. You're going to see this right now, because there are some people that they are doing some movements about create awareness, educate people about what is going on. This lady, her name is Laura Hausen, and she's founder of this pre-organization of Choice for Two, because it's a choice for two. It's not a choice for only. We need to think about there is another person inside the person, and there's a choice for two. And she states that when she was 12 or 11 years old, she saw some abortions videos, and that stuck with her, and she wanted to change that. So she created this pre-organization, pro-life, pro-human rights, and she started working on that, and she does a very beautiful job. And she tries to support people that if you are pregnant, there are lots of supportive organizations that can help you to move on with the pregnancy. There are options. There is adoption options. And Victor will talk a little bit more about all these organizations that are there for help people that want to choose life. And there are some supports for people that decide not to choose life, and now they are regretted or for somehow suffering from some issues, psychological issues that they are carrying on for doing that. So it's very important to know that there are options there. Sometimes there are some research that show that most major women, they choose abortion because they feel insecure, alone, and lost. They don't have the support from their families, from their partners, so they choose that. And that's not right. That's not. There's more options, and they need to know that. And this girl, she's doing this work, and that's important for us too. I guess we are doing this here right now because we're trying to create awareness to these people, compassion and understanding of the process. They have choices, and the choice is for two, is not for only one. So let's see this short video just for you to understand, because she's going to talk about the criminal code. When the criminal code says the human being becomes, the fetus become a human being after left the mother's body. So let's see now. Can you? No.
Ready.
It's not working?
Ok.
Maybe.
Eu acho que o som vai sair.
Okay. Perfect.
But you would be wrong. How did you get your human rights? From the magical birth canal, of course. Disclaimer, birth canal is not the size of an actual birth canal. Just saying, before the baby or fetus is born, it is not a human being. Clearly. But as it passes through the birth canal, something amazing happens that transforms it into a person. With human rights. Observe. Not a person, not a person, not a person. Coming out the other end, a person! Human rights! Congratulations. You now have value. Can't say the same for this one. So what exactly happens in the birth canal that causes this magical transformation? No one knows. But popular scientific theories include fairies, aliens, or of course, a mini Big Bang. I think it's fairies. No human rights? Human rights. No human rights? Human rights. Makes sense. Thanks, magical birth canal. Science, logic, magic, human rights.
What if it's a C-section?
So that's what I have for you today.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Yeah. Lots to think about.
Yes. Yeah, I guess we have a very good idea how are and how are not the laws in Canada about abortion.
As you mentioned, it's all about the awareness, right?
Yes.
Now, it's interesting now that we saw what, for example, the Spirit says, and how and what the human laws view it,
Yeah.
and you are aware of it now. And now
Exactly.
it's not only being aware, but it's up to each of everyone to reflect, right? What does it make sense?
Exactly. The gap, I believe the gap is exactly in this point where they see that the child, the preborn child, is not a human being. That's the point, because if they change this view, so the abortion law will come up again, but in a very right way that doesn't hurt the mothers that has her life in risk, that goes along with the Spirit's book. So it's not too much. Canada is a very good country. People are very compassionate, and that's going to happen soon. I believe so. We need to be optimistic because it's just one gap.
And I was really surprised. I did not know that there's actually not a legislation
Oh yeah.
either way to support your child.
Yeah.
I did not know.
Because people think that it's legal. Actually, it's not that
Yeah,
it's not
that's-
legal.
that's
It's just
what- I thought, being
There's no law at all.
discriminalized, I
Yeah.
thought it was just like you could make the choice,
Mhm.
but actually not having, I don't know, that's my personal view. It's almost like, of course, well, it's almost worse than having something because then you can do whatever, like you can
Yes.
just, there's no boundaries, so, and then it's just like, okay, now the father has no saying, or like each case is almost judged by, like, not judged, but like ruled according to a specific situation.
because the law in Canada is common law.
Yeah.
So if your case is similar to this case,
Yeah.
they're gonna judge in the same way.
Yeah.
If there is a law,
Mhm.
so they need to see this law.
Yeah.
And judge accordingly with the law.
Yeah.
And that's the point when Canada needs to create abortion law to regulate all this situation.
Yeah.
Because I guess you know as well that each province in Canada has the right to have a different kind of legislation. Most of them are very similar, but they can rule in different ways.
Yeah, they have autonomy to make some decisions.
Exactly. So it's important in the criminal code they put something. They come up with a new abortion law.
I can't remember. We had that discussion last week, but I can't remember the answer. So why is so important? Because some people say, yeah, we have free will. Why do we need a law? Right? So why is so important that the government takes care of the law? If even with the law, we have a free will to do. And I can't remember what was the answer that we discussed. Do you remember? So why, the same thing, like why do you legalize marijuana? But there is a reason, a specific reason that it says.
I'm not 100% sure if that is the answer, so if I am not mistaken, it has to be with the state of the humanity. It's like a child when, yes, they all have, we all have free will as children, but we have our parents and even God would have some of our free will kind of needs to be guided. I'm talking my personal understanding, not necessarily the Spiritist view. And I'm not sure if that was it. I think that's what we talked about.
I guess the same way that the divine laws give us the freedom there is a law of freedom, but at the same time there are other laws that depends on the decision that you make. You're going to have consequences, good or not good, depends on what you choose. And I guess the same thing as in human life and human laws. We need some laws to regulate people's act that goes along with the golden rule. Do to others what you want to that others do to you. So otherwise, they're going to do everything that they want, and they're going to have any punishment for that. Besides, the divine laws don't punish anybody. We just have the consequences of our acts. In human laws, we need to that still there it's needed the punishment to make people understand that there are limitations that limited their acts towards life and towards others' life.
Well, and even with laws existing, the person can still use their free will. They can abide to the law or break the law. And I think that also, like if we remember the Mosaic laws, at that time when humanity needed very specific
legislation,
right? Like don't do this, don't do that. But nowadays, humanity it should be more capable of making more conscious decisions. And use their free will in a more conscious way.
And that's
using discernment. But like if we think how many thousands of years from Mosaic laws to now, but we still feel that there are still need for some laws to help us not go too much in the wrong way. But I understand your point, like why we should be exercising the free will.
Can you guys hear me?
Anna, you brought a very good point.
Trying to make a comment.
Hello? Can you guys hear me? Let me try to help answer the question that Luis made. We have also called law of society. And this law of society is very important for us to look out for each other, to watch out for each other. And this law also brings, and this is in the Spirit's book, the responsibility of the society to evolve together, to get closer and closer to God's law as we evolve. So this is the important thing. Our society doesn't live in a very conscious way nowadays. And while we are not conscious enough, it is important that the human law protects the human life. If the human law doesn't protect the human life, we have anarchy. People do whatever they want, and they start taking other people's lives in a barbarian way, as it was in the primitive world. So we have to have still human laws that constrain our free will to be bad used as a society, as a whole. As individuals, as Anna said, yes, we can go to the outside of the law and individually choose to break the law. And this is different because it's an individual choice. But as a society, as a whole, the majority should think about protecting life.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
você aumente de novo um pouquinho, tá?